Hello and welcome to the Cannonballs podcast. This is a production of Disrespected Media LLC. Michael Arace, founder and proprietor. Come check out all of my work, which generally speaking focuses on pro sports in flyover country, Columbus, Ohio. And please visit dudedisrespected.com. I am Mike Arace, your host for this fine production. I think Daryl will attest. And I have the
Yes.
most excellent guest for this episode. Daryl Reaugh is a former NHL goaltender with the Edmonton Oilers and the Hartford Whalers. He has a Stanley Cup ring from the 1988 Oilers team. That was the last Oilers team to win a cup with Wayne Gretzky, if I'm not mistaken. A sliced hand and a knotty hamstring, I guess is the way I'm putting it, cut short Reaugh's promising playing career. But he had a virtually seamless transition into the broadcast booth, and it had to do with the waivers, I came to understand. He was the color analyst alongside Johnny Forsland with the Whale during my 2 years on the beat in the mid-1990s. We had a little bit fun. We were much younger then. He went on to become a TV analyst for the Dallas Stars, and he's still with the team after 30 years. And he hasn't aged a day, as you can see. Reaugh is a veteran of every national TV network that has ever covered the NHL, possibly even the BBC, the Russian state television, and Telemundo. Reaugh, I want to take you back here at the start to the beginning of your broadcasting career. I knew its bud was in Dayton, Ohio, here in flyover country, but I wasn't aware of the details until Ed Ginger filled me in the other day about how you went from the ice or the bench or the locker room to the broadcast booth. Can you enlighten us? Because when Ginger told me the story, I just didn't believe it. It starts with Bud Ginger, Ed Ginger's father.
Yes, the great Bud Ginger. Well, I had gone to a little trade and technical school after I was done playing in Boston, and I wanted to get in the business. I didn't know if I wanted to be like a talking head, like an anchor in sports and that, or do play-by-play or broadcast in some way in hockey. So it was the first job of my good friend Jim Playfair. We were both in the Oiler organization. He's from Fort St. James. I'm from Prince George. Fort St. James is just north of PG. We've known each other forever, lived together in the minors. So I got a hold of him and I said, hey, I have nothing going on. And he says, why don't you come down here and you can keep skating if you want to think about continuing to play and maybe help me out a little bit, whatever. So I go down there and I ended up doing a little bit of that. I was done though. Mentally I was checked out. I didn't want to play anymore. But I ended up in their front office. Like I was selling like board ads and stuff in there. And there was a guy, I hope I have the name right, Lyle Stieg. Does that sound
I don't know. We'd have to ask. We're talking about. I brought up Ed Ginger and Bud Ginger. Bud Ginger owned the Dayton Bombers.
Yes.
Ed Ginger, his son, worked for the team.
Right.
And so I just wanted to clarify that.
So Bud was pretty fiery, the old man, and he and I think Stieg had been like a big deal, like limousine riding sports anchor in Ohio, and because of various reasons, I guess.
Ron Burgundy type?
Yeah, maybe a little bit that way. He had ended up, anyway, in the booth and that. I actually did a couple of games doing color with him. And he and Bud got into it one day, partway through the year, and he fired him. And he called me up that same day, and he's like, hey, could you do play-by-play? And I'd never done a game in my life. And I'm like, of course. Yes, I can. And there I was. That night, I called my very first professional hockey game. And I didn't really know what I was doing other than I was doing it. And I had a blast. To this day, look, I've done 30 years now. I've won awards and Emmys and all kinds of things. That might have been the most enjoyable year that I had, just because I'd never done it before. I felt like I was getting better. I really enjoyed it. The people there were fantastic within the organization. Ended up going into the playoffs and that, and I can I can still remember the station we were on. I think it was Wing, WING. You're listening to. I used to say you're listening to Dayton Bombers hockey on CNN, WING, whatever, right? And I called it the Dayton Bombers Radio Network. I don't think you could hear the game outside the parking lot, outside Hera Arena. I really don't. But I was trying to pump it up, and I would just be like, "Yeah, you're listening to Bombers hockey all along the Bombers Radio Network," as if it was going all the way through Ohio and neighboring states,
I
So
heard it on.
that was the origin story.
Well, I heard it on the X. I guess is what would be one. But I just want to clarify for listeners: Ed Ginger left the Bombers like 23 years ago to become he founded the Ohio Blue Jackets junior program.
Yep.
Coached for years at the highest level, the AAA, and all these players that are coming out of Columbus is like Kiefer Sherwood was in town the other day. Those are their products. I mean, Gord Murphy's kid, and we can go on and on. But Ed Ginger still runs the program. And I had, as long as I've known you, I had no idea the story until Thursday, I think it was, when I ran into him at the arena, and he said, and your name came up, and he said, "Did Razor ever tell you how he got to start?" Now, the way he tells his story is even better.
Good.
He said his father called him, and he said, "I fired the play-by-play guy." And Ed said, "Well, geez, Dad, why? What, he's sticking his nose in things he shouldn't be sticking his nose into." He said, "Dad, we have a game tomorrow night. Who's going to call it?" And he said, "I'll come up with something." And the way that Ed Ginger tells the story is his father called you in the office, and he said, "Well, I can wave you and you can go home, or I can wave you and you can go up to the booth."
He did too. Those contracts in the East Coast Hockey League weren't even worth the paper that they were written on. Like there was no binding contract in the East Coast Hockey League. But that's funny. He did. I remember saying, I mean, it was half a joke. He was just wondering whether I would do it or not. So funny.
I've always thought that, and I know some broadcasters of some stature, yourself included, and they all talk about doing radio play-by-play again because it's and that's what they like to do. I know some well, I'll put it this way: for 25 years, I've been hoping that there's a couple people, 3 people that I was hoping they'd land in Columbus to call games for the Blue Jackets. It hasn't worked out, but I'm getting off topic now. Anyway, so Razor's here for a reason other than his origin story, and it's much like Tony Stark's or something like that. It sounds like, huh? He's here for a reason. His parents can tell you about that, but the reason he's here on Cannonballs is because he has quite a bit of personal and institutional knowledge about, one, Dean Evason, who was fired on Monday by the Blue Jackets president and GM Don Waddell, and 2, Rick Bowness, the septuagenarian, easy for me to say, who was hired to take Dean Evason's place. And Razor will start. I want to start with Dean because you've known him for, what, 50 years?
Just about.
Yeah.
Just about. Yeah, we go. I mean, we were in the same organization before we even played in the Western Hockey League. Yeah, we were in our
Really?
early teens.
So it predates the Kamloops Junior Oilers. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I believe it was 84 under Bill LaForge.
Yep.
Who was a big impact. Bill LaForge, a polarizing figure in coaching. Coached your team. You were in goal, and I think Dean was the captain of a team that won the Western Hockey League in 1984.
You got it.
Made it to the semis of the Memorial Cup. I did a big piece. I spoke to you in the spring and describing that background and the impact different coaches had on Dean. But I thought Dean was a perfect fit here, Razor. You know, I
Yeah.
really did. He led him through an inspiring first season, and you thought, you know, they're just on a launching pad at this point.
Mhm.
And in the second season in Columbus, he just couldn't get him off the pad. It cost him his job. I like to say, to the audience, just as a plug here, that I did a 25-minute interview with Dean Evason yesterday, and it posted at thedisrespected.com. It's in a Q&A, so check that out.
Bucci pumped it back out there for you too.
Yeah, I could, you know, when he does that, I can almost see in real time the analytics go. But anyway, I did thank him. But no, it's interesting. He's a really interesting guy. I don't know what would you. I know you don't want to talk about from Dallas what's going on in Columbus with the coaching situation, but
Yeah.
what would you like to say after this, you know, historic week in Columbus, for lack of a better phrase?
Yeah, look, I feel bad for every coach that gets fired because that it is so easy to do it now in our I I was looking at the NFL and watching that unfold. What do they call it? Black Monday or whatever.
Yeah,
As soon as
yeah,
the season ends. Everyone's just now we had a couple of guys get shown the door or they mutually decide however they want to PR it out of the barn. What was it, 18 and 19 years for Harbaugh
yeah.
yeah,
Tomlin was even longer. Yeah,
Tomlin was 19, I think, Mike
yeah,
Tomlin. So, it's not as if it was just a snap decision in those situations, but man, there's so much blame that's just pointed toward coaches. And it's weird that this year Dean's the first guy to get piped
yes.
and we're past the midway point of the season, which is an absolute rarity. It's almost, like a unicorn season to not have a bunch of firings, but so many teams have done well and are in their minds done well.
Well, I
And
think in the East in particular, it's because
yes,
everyone's still in the
yeah,
playoff
yeah,
race. It's still
yeah.
stacked up.
So, I think it's just, I'll say the same thing. I think Aikman said it the other day about the NFL. If we're going to talk, Hall of Famer and Hall of Famer, that I don't know why guys would ever want to get into coaching. And I say the same thing. I've, a bunch of friends that are in coaching in the National Hockey League. And I'm just like, man, why would you guys do that to yourselves? The days they put in, the blame they take, the unbelievable, I can't wrap my mind around reason why we make them talk every single day. Like they talk every day, NHL coaches about, what, and, have to deal with us in the media, and they do an incredible job of, they've gotten much better at saying nothing, but talking a lot. That's like a skill. So, with Dean, it just seemed like, I don't know the inner goings on and what went on. Nobody really has that, right?
That's
The
right.
day-to-day interior. People can say they're insiders. Nobody's really an insider unless you're in the hockey department or on the team. But like as you said, like he just, and it did not surprise me the job he did last year because he's, both the coaches, the outgoing and the ingoing, for me are incredible leaders of man. They can usually get the best out of a group, most of them anyway, and guys want to play for them. Guys want them to succeed. That was Bones. That's the history of Rick Bowness.
Yeah, we'll get to Bones in a
Yeah,
minute.
but the same thing with Dino. Like, he's a very guy's guy. He loves the job. Like he really loves coaching. And he likes it when his just like LaForge back in the day, different way, maybe a little bit. There's no way coach could exist in today's world. But the idea that we're all in this together, and here we go. We're going to do this as a group, and that he had the ability to galvanize that way with them last year, and then you get it. That's the history of this position at this in this league, though. Like, what did you do for me lately? Like, that was great. That was fantastic.
Well,
and, the guy I was thinking of too is Jared Bednar.
Yeah.
In Colorado. People forget. You go back to when he took over, and like a colossally crappy season. Now they got a pretty good player out of the deal by,
Right.
never winning. But who would have blamed them to say, you know what, he's done great things in the American Hockey League and that, but we're going to move on. We need a guy who's coached 700 games in this league. We need a veteran guy coming in here, and they didn't do that. They stayed patient, and now he's on track. I think he's second to John Cooper now, is he not,
Right.
in tenure?
Well, Bednar, that was a Chris McFarland hire. I think he was AGM at the time. Joe Sakic was still GM in Colorado,
Yeah.
but he was the AGM in Columbus, and he was the general manager of the Cleveland Monsters with Jared Bednar as coach, and that was the way that Jared Bednar got to Colorado. But you're dead on, and that patience should be rewarded. This is not seen, especially in small markets, should be seen as more of a longer game. You have to build it right for sustenance.
Yeah.
And, I look at the Blue Jackets, and, I said this to a team official Thursday night. It's that this does not look good from the outside. I mean, you may have an understanding about the inner workings and why Don Waddell would have had to make this move or felt compelled to make this move. But from the outside, you're looking at a Blue Jackets team with 4 coaches over the last 375 games. That's like 90-some games a coach, a Razor. John Tortorella is the only one of 12 coaches in the history of the franchise to get to 300 games. I mean, and so you look at the way, I'm not going to say the Blue Jackets are run poorly, but this is one of the hallmarks of poorly run teams, especially when you put it up against like the Colorado Avalanche.
I think in any sport, I don't think you have to look at just hockey. Like,
yes,
you want to find teams that can't find the upper echelon and stay there. A lot of times you just take a look at how they overhaul and churn their hockey departments and their coaching staffs. Like, I know it comes from the right place, right?
Yeah.
They all, it's one of those, we think we're better here. We think this should be better. We're going to try this. This guy was available, whatever it is. But you find me an upper echelon elite organization in any sport that just, spits them out, chews them up, turns it over. I'd be shocked to see it. Like, I know. And look, today's different than yesterday in that
the money and the pressure.
It doesn't. Well, there's that. There's that. The money certainly has changed a lot of attitudes in that. But I think our world in general, if you want to get philosophical, like just look at social media and everything now. Like how stuff never lasts. The one thing we've talked about quite a bit at the back of our bus throughout the year has been how little interest there really is in in history today. Like, even if it was like 5 years ago, and you could detail something and talk about something, and this went on. For the most part, there is almost zero appetite for that. It is like, what is going on right now?
I thought about that the other day when Bowness quoted Al Arbor, and I was thinking, now, if you're a hockey fan, you should know who Al Arbor is. And I'm looking around the room; it's just media, and I'm going like, I wonder how any of them know who Al Arbor was, and how many of the players have heard his name. You know what I mean? It's like,
that's Al Arbor. That's that generation. I'm in our room the other day, and I think it was Duchesne and Maverick Bourque are having a conversation. And Maverick was saying, young guy, right, in his early 20s, and that he's talking about Rob Blake. Somehow that conversation had gone on before they allowed the media in there, and Maverick was like, I had no idea it was that good of a player. And you're just like, but that's the reality of it. And then, in our minds, you're like, well, of course he was. We watched his whole career. He used to blow guys up with his bum coming across, and bang, and away it went. But then you forget that these guys, they have no, they were playing EA Sports, on their computer. They weren't really watching games or on their consoles and that.
They didn't have hockey cards.
Then you go even deeper, and you're like, okay, one of the true iconic general managers in our sport, and the, dynasty powerhouse Islanders. And then you start counting back. I always do this. This is always my my thing whenever it's like, how could they not know about him? And then I take myself back to about their age, and then
Yeah.
I track back that same amount of time, and I'm like, well, how could you not have known some of the key principles in the collapse in the late 20s of Wall Street? And you're like, what? But that's essentially what you're asking them, right? So I don't know. It to answer your question or get back to it anyway.
Was there a question in there? Jeez.
I I have great affinity for patience. But that has to be, it has to sort of permeate things, don't you think? Where
Yeah.
it's like, yeah, we could do this, but should we? Or
Well,
and then you don't know the whole story. That's the
right.
other part of
Right.
this stuff. Like
I
guys
was
get fired and for very various reasons.
Razor, I was really hopeful when it was time for Yarmo to go. Yarmo got Yarmo fired. I have tremendous respect for him. I always wrote that he's going to be a really good general manager in his second go around, and I have no doubt he'll succeed in Buffalo. That said, it was time. He made mistakes that he couldn't recover from, and that he had to be held accountable for. And when Don Waddell came in and then hired Dean Evason, I was very hopeful because here are two guys, 66, 61 years old. They've been everywhere. They've seen everything. They haven't gotten the grail. Don Waddell was an assistant GM in Detroit when they won a cup in, 97 or whatever it was. But I just thought these are guys with the kind of institutional knowledge, experience, and also the human qualities to know what to do with this franchise in this place and time, and to stick to their guns and look at a longer game. I really thought Dean was part of that plan. Now I have to be hopeful on behalf of Blue Jackets fans that Don Waddell has a plan, because it seems strange to me that he would come in a press conference and introduce Rick Bowness and say, yeah, I called him up yesterday in the morning, and we had an agreement by lunch and a contract signed in the afternoon. And first of all, I'm going like, I don't think it works like that. One, but two is, what are we doing here? You just hired a 7-year-old guy to coach for the rest of the season. I thought things would be different. There's no question in there. Those are just my general observations. I still have faith in Don Waddell. I still like the man very much. And I want to see what he does with this young core team. And it's really interesting times because he's got to make decisions on whether to buy or sell real fast.
He's not alone.
Yeah. Yep.
It's one of those years that way.
Well, now for the second reason I've asked Razor to come on the Cannonballs, if you will. That's really a bad phrase there.
It is.
His personal and professional knowledge of Rick Bowness, who's, as we said, come out of retirement to fix all this. Razor, when Bones was hired here, I'm in Pittsburgh. When he was hired in Columbus, I got a lot of texts, one of them from you, and they were universal in their respect and admiration for this man and his respect for his coaching ability. He's been in the business for all or parts of 5 decades, longest serving coach at, be it associate, assistant, or head coaching level in the game. You had him for 3 years, 176 games in Dallas. First, I'd like you to talk about his coaching style, the man, and what you think he might be able to accomplish here with this group.
Yeah, well, it doesn't sound like a long stretch of time that he was here, but then you have to take an inward look at the context too. That was COVID, and when he had to step into a very difficult position here when they moved on from a coach. And I remember that the day that they fired Jim Montgomery and it was an in-season firing. It wasn't performance related. And all of a sudden Bones is the head coach, right? And he does such a great job and did then of making sure that everyone understood that this was just going to be about us. I care about you, you care about me, you care about him. I think that's first and foremost how he goes about his business, because it's never coach speak or an act or anything. It's the human that's who Bones
Genuine
is.
bones.
Yes. And there is a fatherly aspect to the way he goes about doing it, but that goes all the way back to when he was an assistant coach, both in Tampa. I think of him in Vancouver with the Canucks,
Right.
and running, their decor and their penalty kill, and just how those guys to this day feel about Rick Bowness. Like you can grab any one of those guys, that there's not a person that played that position or was on a penalty kill that would look and say, he's one of the shittier coaches I've ever been around, or I didn't have any respect for him. Yeah, like you never hear any of that stuff.
It's interesting you say. I was talking to Erica Branson just the other day, and when the coaching change went down, immediately he got 3 texts from 3 former Canucks just to say, "This guy is the greatest. He had an impact on my life and my career."
But that's the key. That there aren't a lot of those coaches around anymore. There's a lot of mercenaries, right?
Oh yeah.
They don't really care. They might give it some lip service, but they don't really care or get that attached, because they know in 3 to 5 years they're going to be coaching somewhere else nowadays.
Yeah, or the player's going to get traded or
Or
whatever.
it's just the mercurial aspect or nature of our
Or
game.
some agent's going to be calling the front office saying, "What's this coach
Oh
doing
my
with
God,
my player?"
the amount of outside influences that these guys have to deflect nowadays. They have their own skills coaches. They have their own strength and conditioning coaches. They have their dads who played at the elite midget level that think they know more than everybody. You know what I mean? Like their agent, and they're getting, if you want to reach out and find out how badly you're getting screwed as a player in today's NHL and professional sports, you can, they're lined up out there. So
It's funny. It's funny you mentioned that too. Before we finally get to the question, or continue with it, but one of the things that Dean Evason talked to me about yesterday was outside influences, and we should have done a better job. Now, I can't speculate to what he's referring to. I can only presume that it could be 100 things, and I think that's kind of exactly what you're talking about. He was talking about influences from outside of the locker room that should have been kept outside the locker room that might have had an impact on his team.
it could be. I mean, probably. But that I think there's a shield that has to be built and put up and handled now that you didn't have to handle in the same manner,
Right.
20 years ago.
Anyway, back to Bones the man here.
So the point I was trying to support there was that he wants them to all do well on the ice, and they want to win, and he's he might be fatherly, but he is fiery competitive, right?
Yeah.
Like very much so. But he cares about his players as humans, as people. I think it's 1-to-1 with Bones. Like he wants to know what's going on in their lives. He wants to help them in their lives if they want that. Some guys don't. They just want a coach player relationship. And then he's seen everything. He has seen everything in this sport, right? So nothing surprises him. They always build from a defensive standpoint first, and there can be knocks that it's we went from him to DeBoer, and contrasting styles, and Pete's got his beliefs, and he's been very successful with what he does. Bones had to hold this group together out of the firing, in that they were basically in a penitentiary in Edmonton when they went to the final. And you think of the mental challenge. Like there were some teams that were just like immediately out, gone. We're not doing this, right? They just, so it was a freaky thing that way, and he was able to get them to believe that this was a worthy endeavor, and let's stay with it, and they battled their way through and ultimately lost to Tampa in the final in front of nobody. The weirdest thing ever.
Yeah.
Like I remember that time with COVID where he took over and he was doing it on the fly, and they weren't very good immediately in that. And then he had a little mini training camp. Remember, everybody had those little mini camps heading
Yes.
into the bubble.
Right.
And the one thing that he wanted was he wanted to get our D more involved in the attack, and that was their main focus heading into that. That he believed in that. They needed that. They had John Klingberg, they had Miro Heiskanen, and those two guys led him in scoring in the bubble.
Oh, wow.
And they were the reason why they plowed their way through that. Just, I don't even I to this day I don't know what that was. And from my personal standpoint, like every day I would send him a text and he would text me back, or we would talk on the phone, because we were doing it from here. They were there. We were here for 2 months they're
Right.
trying to chase down the Stanley Cup. And he was open and trusting and give me information. That's the aspect of him I always enjoyed, is that he would trust you, and he was open with stuff, and his beliefs were his beliefs, and he was steadfast in those, and he was successful because of it. Then he goes to Winnipeg, and all the same things you could say. And in some ways, I think last year with the Jets was probably a continuation.
Right.
Like Scott Arniel added his own elements to it, but a lot of that was Bones.
Yeah, he probably learned a lot from Bones. Of course, some credit to Scott Arniel, who was a disaster in his first job here, and it's part of the reason why Scott Housen was fired. But Arniel has spoken subsequently about how much he's grown since then, and I imagine that his doctoral dissertation was done under Bones in Winnipeg.
Yeah.
So credit to him. Um, you know, these. Can you talk about style and systems? You mentioned defense being more involved, which is a feature of the Blue Jackets anyway, with guys
Yeah, with
like
Werenski, yeah, for
with
sure.
Werenski and to a certain extent that Matejchuk and some of these other guys.
Yep.
But um, he has spoken off right off the hop. He said he wanted to address their defensive problems, the problems in their own zone, and he ticked off exactly what they were. Rush chances, uh, uh, clearing out the crease. I can go on here and you can look up all the stats. They're terrible and all those defensive metrics. And so that was his first thing. We're going to fix that. We're going to fix the penalty kill, which is terrible. And overall, the program is we're going to play with pressure, because if
Okay,
you're
which would be a little bit of even at age 70, that's one of the true great attributes of him, is he's never stopped learning too, and adapting. You can't coach for 5 decades and coach in your 5th decade like you did in your first decade,
no,
right?
no.
Like, so
Hey, goalie, get that mask off.
yeah. What are we doing? Like, our D-man, I don't want you going over center ice. Like, you guys stay back. And so I remember asking last year, because they were on such a incredible run, especially in the early season in Winnipeg. And it was like, okay, well, what's changed here, if anything, from the year prior? And what has Scott Arniel sort of added to this group? And they talked about they wanted to be a team that got after it more, like pressured the puck more, closed on people, and instead of maybe a little more, like, if you want to call it zone or systematic or conservative or whatever, they wanted to add that. So to hear that, that's probably another thing that Bones has seen in stepping back and watching games a little bit, maybe that he's like, look, this is the game now, and if you don't have the puck, you better go get it back. Within your system, you have to hunt to eat. Like, you got to get after it. So he'll shore up the penalty kill and defensive acumen and all that stuff, because he's done that everywhere. That's his bailiwick, right? And then the other part of it would be that might be a little bit of a growth area.
Yeah. The other thing too is how he's wiped the slate clean. And the classic example is he said this morning after skate here in Pittsburgh that Elvis is going back in the net. Elvis played really well the other night against Vancouver.
Yeah, I've never seen it work well for head coaches when they get a little friction with a starting netminder. I've never seen that work out well.
Well, he's no longer the starter, is the point. I mean,
but
He won his first.
you
He
know
won
what I
his.
mean.
Yeah, his first. Yes, yeah, exactly. But
Yeah.
Elvis's first win since December 4th, I believe, was Thursday night, and he's coming right back at him. He said he played well, and the past is the past. So he's an anti-Faulkner. And slate's clean for everyone. I'm going to learn about these guys in the next 10, 15 games on my own, and
Yeah,
we're going to go from there.
don't you think that's part of why there's always that new coach bump? There's always a new coach bump. Teams change coaches, and you can look. I would say 9 out of 10. There's a 5 to 10 game bump where everything is great. It looks like, oh my God, absolutely that needed to happen. And part of that is you have individuals who were either in the doghouse and couldn't get out of it, or the coach deviated from coaching and just started judging, and that coach judged that person needed to be scratched or wasn't going to play or couldn't do this or whatever it is. Then you bring in a fresh set of eyes and the new coach, and if they're a man of their word, they say, look, I'm going to give everyone a fresh start, and you're going to earn whatever you get. This is going to be accountability, but you're going to start from fresh, and if you don't get it done, it's on you. If you do get it done, you're going to get rewarded.
Right, and they want to believe too. It's like I talked to a player who was in the box on Tuesday night and then back on the ice on Thursday night, and he said that on Tuesday night he could see the changes already from up top. You know what I mean? From with the bird's eye view. And then I think Jackets fans are most concerned with and should be that Ken Johnson stalled this year. That's a guy they're going to need. I mean, that's a high first round draft pick. Adam Fantilli is in something of a funk. Now, Fantilli hasn't snapped out of it, but as soon as Bones got here, Kent Johnson's minutes went up by, I don't know, 7 or something like that, 9 to 15 or 16 or something like that. And he's flying all over the place. That's an immediate impact in 2 games. And that's quite extraordinary. I didn't expect anything like that.
Yeah. I mean, belief, especially for young players, skilled players, they need to have someone that believes in them. Again, I get back to, it's as old as the league. Like, coaches get a certain attitude toward certain players. Yeah. A lot of times it's warranted too. They don't want to actually believe it, but it ends up being warranted. But I would, goaltenders and high draft picks get more coaches fired than I think anything else in our sport. It does everywhere, because
you asked me if I got Evason fired. I said no, I didn't. It was probably the goaltender in the first round
with I can't even call it poison pen anymore because you don't write.
I wrote 7 stories last week.
Well, no, but you don't write with a pen anymore.
Yeah.
It's like a microphone and then a keyboard. But
only Sharpies, Razor.
Okay, all right. I take that back. But it is, man, goaltending is fascinating in our sport, right? Because you show me a coach that's just lighting it up, and you can usually just trace a direct line to the crease and how that is going, right?
Yeah.
And then I understand where hockey departments are coming from too. They draft these guys and they believe in them, and then if it's not going well and the development's paused or whatever else is going on, you're trying to find reasons for it, and a lot of times that reason lands in behind your bench. But look, it always works. Like, look at the Leafs right now. Like, and I know it was just an assistant coach, but the guy running the power play, like, they came in here, Stars beat them 5-1. And I think it was right after that they fired Savard. Like, something had to happen.
Yeah.
And I know it's mostly the players that are on it and that, but the change of voice and the eyes and maybe belief in some individuals, and that has an impact in the micro and in the macro all over the place. It's the nature of our sport. It really is.
Oh, what a sport it is. I'm going to circle back and ask a question I posed previously, but just put it in different terms. Can Bones get this team out of sell mode by February 8th.
Okay, well, how many points are they out?
Geez, I don't know. It's like, what, 6 now or 7?
7
Yeah.
points out of the
Tim,
second wild
Yeah,
card?
they're-
hold on. Let's go to the executive producer.
Okay,
Yeah.
now.
Yeah, they're 5 points out of third in the Metro, with Pittsburgh on 54 points. They are on 49 points. Pittsburgh has a game in hand.
Pitt has a game in hand, and they're 5 points out.
Yes.
Yeah, he can.
All right.
Yeah, he can. Not easy, but in a season like this,
Yeah.
and who knows
It could be insane. I mean, we don't know the insanity that could be ahead of us.
None. Like you don't know who's going to go down or up over in Milan. You don't know whether a team's going to like a team that has been maybe fairly consistent, maybe playing above what everybody's expectations for them were, aren't all of a sudden going to hit their rut and get 2 wins in 13 games or something like that. And you make up that gap.
You look at the East, for instance, and I'm not saying this will have any impact, but it could. Between Florida and Tampa Bay, I think there's 20 players going to the Olympics.
There you go.
What happens after in March, with them?
And they played a lot of hockey over the previous years, and that they're going to go and play that, which is going to be at a completely different level. And then, not all of them are going to play all the way through. Like some teams are going to get popped immediately and have a little bit of vacation time. But then you're going to come out of that, and the season is just as condensed. And it's this frantic race. We've seen it every year. The games get tighter. It's almost impossible to score. You're going to get a ton of games, you would think, again, where 3 points are shared back and forth. That's the one thing that makes it a little bit more difficult to close gaps, is that you need a team to go on a run where they don't lose well, where they end up losing completely. They don't get any points at all, and then you can make up some ground.
It was not even a week ago, I'm saying, well, how are you going to jump 8 teams? Okay, I don't care how many points you're out. You need help from 8 teams, you're in trouble,
True.
Now, in a week, that's changed. It's like, it is crazy.
Special teams and goaltending, brother. Special teams and goaltending.
Oh, if they had any semblance of a penalty kill this year, Dean might still be employed, Anyway, I think I get the unmistakable feeling, and it's easy to have that everyone's rooting for Rick Bowness. It's just, that's part of why he is who he is.
Yeah, I mean, this is the most torn I've ever been, I think, in a coaching change, because I think the world of the guy that got fired, and I think the world of the guy that's incoming.
I do too.
It's not like, I go back to last year. I voted for him, as we vote on Coach of the Year,
right?
And it wasn't out of I think of him as a brother. It wasn't out of any kind of bias or nepotism or anything along that line. Like, I thought it was warranted. With what the Blue Jackets were going through, and to get them to do what they did, I thought it was one of the best coaching jobs that was done last year. And
no question about it.
A half a season later, he's out. It's an incredible statement about our game. So.
I know. I started our conversation yesterday with, "Hey, Dean, how you doing?" And then I paused. I said, "Geez, that's a bad question. You just got fired, man." Yeah. And he laughed. You know what I mean? Because that's who he is. We leave a spot here for Tim. He usually picks up on something and has a good question. And if it's not a good question, we'll just cut it. Tim, you got anything for us today?
Wow, you're hard.
I mean, I don't have a question necessarily, but you were talking about like coaching continuity and how like generally well-run, smart teams keep their coach in place probably, longer than a lot of people say they should. I mean, you mentioned like Tampa and Colorado, but like I think the one team that the Jackets could look at is Montreal, who hired San Luis when they were really bad and stuck with them through three seasons when they were, finishing like in last in the conference with the Jackets, and now they're almost definitely going to make the playoffs this year. And I wonder about the timing of the firing, and like, I feel like they could have, I don't know, maybe in the long term benefited from, the continuity of having Evason, who I mean, regardless of all the, blown leads and, stuff the Jackets have gone through this year, I still think he's a really good coach. I don't know. I just think like pulling the plug on that good of a coach at this time in the year, like trying to salvage the season, I think is a little short-sighted. That's just kind of how I feel from like an outside perspective.
Yeah, I get that. Like we went through it here. Like when you think of it, like that was a stunning firing over the summer in Dallas. Like we had a guy here that had concocted the best record in the National Hockey League over 3 years. Went to back conference finals, and nope, we're gonna go in a different direction. And you can understand in some ways why, in other ways you can understand why people are perplexed by it. It's Reaugh, like it's a staggering thing. And you could even tell, even when Pete was coaching our team and he had to answer questions when, like last year, coaches were getting fired all over the place in the first part of the season. And you could tell if you were really listening, like how much he was bristling at just the fast food nature of coaching in the National Hockey League. And then in the end, he's a casualty himself. Now he's on the board with Team Canada at the Olympics, and coming out of that, if he'd like to coach, I'm sure there's somewhere for him to land in that.
Oh, no question. And
but it's a good point, and it's not. Again, I'm going to sound like I'm repeating myself, but I'm a firm believer in this. Like you look at coaches and you look at goaltenders. Like look at Stuart Skinner. Yeah. He's a hometown guy in Edmonton. He takes a team to the Stanley Cup final. Like he outplayed Jake Ottinger in a couple of conference finals in a row. He takes them to the final. He can't win it at that level. Like, yeah, I mean, if you look at the warts in that, you can find enough of them to be just disgusted by it. But at the same time, if you look at the actual outcome of a lot of it, you're like, that seemed pretty good. Like
they take it in Columbus.
Some teams can't get to a conference final. I won't mention them, but there's some franchises that can't. There's two of them anyway in the league.
Aaron Forchline and I, and by the way, Porty did a great piece on Evason that also appeared yesterday at The Athletic. So check out disrespected.com. Check out Porty's stuff at The Athletic. The mayor of Jackettville still got his fastball.
Woodward and Bernstein of NHL coverage right there.
No, but Porty and I were walking through the lower lobby to go to skate at the PPG Paints Arena here in Pittsburgh. And there's the, 6 replica cups or whatever, there's 5. And Porty stops and goes, Mike, what are those? I don't think what is that? Anyway.
I'll say this before you dump me. From the outside, like I think the entire sort of NHL community wants to see the Columbus Blue Jackets succeed. Get that kind of a market, and everybody looks at it the same way. They're like, man, if they were, pick one of these teams that's been humming along for a while. If they were them, what an insane locale and what a wonderful place that would feel. It would seem like there, because it just feels like it's just thirsting to have it coursing through their veins there.
It's been 10 months pregnant for success for 26 years. It's a great hockey market.
Yes.
And it hasn't even been unzipped yet.
No.
Absolutely right. I've always felt that. I love the city and I love it as a hockey market. And I'm saddened that they've had this quarter century plight like they've had, although there's been some high spots. About the coaching thing, I just want to mention before I do the outro here, that you said it earlier, and that is there are no real insiders. Aaron and I were talking about it today, walking back and forth across the street to the rink. It's like there's stuff that went on that compelled Don Waddell to act that we can't know about and probably never will. So
of course, and you don't want to throw stuff out there that feels even more nefarious than than
Yeah.
what it probably is either.
No.
Because you start tossing cubes of that out there, and then all of a sudden everybody, you know how the world works now. Then they're like, well, what was it? When it's like injuries, you know, like if you don't actually say what the injury is, everyone speculation is just going to go
Yeah.
nuts on what it
Yeah.
is.
I know.
And the fact is that there's really smart people, and there are big banquet tables full of analytics people and eyeball people and scouts and all this stuff. And with the money involved nowadays, and it being really difficult to move players around, the easiest thing to do, and sometimes the more sensible thing to do, is to change that position, because it has the positive impact more times than not when you
Right.
do that. But it's not fair, and I have a lot of time for the organization that are able to hang in there. Now you need synergy dropping down from ownership, it feels like, all the way through, to be able to say, no, this is going to go away. We think we have the right thing, blah blah blah, whichever way you want to do it. Otherwise, it's again fast food. You know, I'm hungry. Let's drive through and get a burger. And then you come out of there and you're not hungry anymore, but the toilet's waiting.
Well, you know, and again, it's ownership has always written a check whenever management has asked for it here in Columbus, and uh, the GMs all mentioned that. And what needs to be understood in that context is, in Columbus, Ohio, the Blue Jackets don't make money unless they make the playoffs. And
I don't think
no doubt that's
I think
a
there's
factor.
more. I think there are more markets than people want or know about or want to know about that are in the same boat or a
Right.
similar boat or pretty
Now,
close to it.
I don't have any truck for any owner who whines about losing money, because you buy a franchise for its tax write-offs and for its accruing value. So the Blue Jackets paid $80 million to get into the league in 1999, and the franchise is now worth $900+ million. So like anytime an owner whines about the books, I always say the same thing: show me the books. And they don't show you the books.
Even you?
But that said, it's teams don't make money. And again, I come back to, absolutely, the Blue Jackets don't make money unless they make the playoffs, and that's a factor in all these kinds of decisions.
Of course, and especially in a year like this, right, where it's tantalizingly close for a lot of teams. Like, it is right there. And I think it's changed some attitudes within some teams that maybe in past would have been like, hey, it's not going to happen this year. Let's load up with some picks or whatever and move some of these expiring contracts. And, hopefully next year's a better year. We're going to try to fix this and this. I think a lot of teams this year are looking like, look, if we have a couple of just unbelievable weeks, we're right back in this thing.
Right.
Like, I think that changes some attitudes too, and maybe pushes some of these decisions along a little bit. But who knows? I just feel bad for my boy, and I feel really happy for Bones getting back in again. I feel happy for the Blue Jackets in that that's the guy that they're getting after Dean. It could have it could have been something else or some other person, but it's Bones. I can't think of a better guy. Just a little bit surprised that they could drag him back in again.
Well, he said Judy was raring to go. That's what he said. She was raring to go.
That's the answer right there. As long as Judy's on board, I think the bonuses are on board.
Oh, to quote him, she loves it more than I do. She was ready to go. That's a good place to end, Razor. I hope your family's well. It's always fun talking to you.
You too, buddy.
It's been a blast doing it on this platform. I hope to have you back maybe sometime in the during the break or something. We can talk some smack about some other crap. And so that's it for this historic episode 5 of Cannonballs, the Cannonballs podcast.
Do I get a Balls t-shirt or something? Or
yes, you do. Yes, you do.
It's
a production of Disrespected Media, Tim Arace, executive producer, and thedisrespected.com. All one word, thedisrespected.com. Visit us at our website. There's a lot of content there, and we're cheap. Check out Cannonballs as well as our crew pod, The Crucible, at Spotify, crew fans, this week I'm getting down to Florida to get Henrik Rydström, the new coach, one-on-one as soon as he lands from Sweden. So stay tuned. Our pods are available on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and other platforms. I'm not sure which other platforms yet. Tim's supposed to be working on that, and I might dock his pay until he figures it out. So like, follow, review, and share. It helps foster local independent media. Razor, you're the best. Thanks so much for joining us. We should get a triple pod going with Johnny one of these days.
Yeah,
right,
that'd
John?
be fun.
Oh yeah, that'd be great.
That'd be fun. You'll look like the barista in the middle, or the
I just like it. A fat, overweight, old sports writer is pretty much it. Thanks again, Razor.